Hello and welcome back to this little corner of the internet. If you're new here, hi, my name is Lillian, and in an effort to sort of curb or curtail my rabid book buying habits, I put myself on a book buying ban for 2023. And now that 2023 is coming to a close, I am definitely making plans for what books I want to buy immediately in the new year. So I wanted to make this video sort of a preemptive book haul for 2024, telling you about the books that I have been chomping at the bit to get my hands on, to have my own copy, books that are grabbing my attention at the moment or that have been on my mind for most of the year. So let's get into it. One of the first books that I know I will definitely be buying is Emergency Stories by Kathleen Alcott. This was published this past July in 2023 by W.W. Norton & Company. I got to read a portion of this short story collection on NetGalley for review over the summer, but I didn't manage to finish the entire book before my time was up with the e-copy, which was no fault of the book. I was just simply juggling a lot on my plate at that time. Nevertheless, I was really blown away by the two short stories that I did get to read from this collection. Both of them have definitely haunted the back of my brain since I read them in the summer, and I would really like to dive back in and see what the rest of this collection holds. The book summary describes this as a collection of stories examining women at various tipping points in their lives. I definitely remember Alcott's use and play with language really sticking out to me when I did get to read the first two stories, and I definitely felt the weight of both of the stories, if that makes sense. Both of the stories felt like the kind where I had to put the book down when I had finished each one of them and sort of sit with the story and chew on it. Side note, I think this may be the first video that I'm filming with the new bookshelf set up behind me, so I'll point that out and give that a second. Very happy to not have an overflow of books sort of piling up around my room and have enough space to have them all on a shelf now. The next book that I want to talk about, first of all, I definitely want to give a moment for the really stunning cover of the paperback edition of this book, and it's The Employees, a workplace novel of the 22nd century by Olga Ravn. And this is translated from the Dutch by Marten Aitken. This book came out this past February with New Directions Publishing Company. This one sounds like it is a speculative sci-fi / social commentary story set on an interstellar spaceship. The book summary tells us that the story itself is told via a series of internal memos sent back and forth between the human and humanoid crew, and I'll read you a snippet of the book description here. Olga Ravn's prose is chilling, crackling, exhilarating, and foreboding. The Employees probes into what makes us human while delivering a hilariously stinging critique of life governed by the logic of productivity. All of which sounds very interesting to me. I have definitely been in the mood for some speculative fiction and some social commentary, so hoping to enjoy this book. The next book, I feel like I don't really need to give much of an introduction or much of an explanation, and that is My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante, translated from the Italian by Anne Goldstein. I feel like I'm finally at the point where I want to delve into the Elena Ferrante experience. I've honestly heard nothing but rave reviews about her work in general, particularly her ability to write incredibly nuanced character studies. So I figured I'd start with the big one, the Neapolitan Quartet, and this is the first book in that series. This book originally came out in 2012 with Europa, and I'll be sure to keep you posted on how this book goes for me in 2024. Another author that I've been really keen to pick up and try for the first time is Susan Sontag, and I'm looking in particular to pick up her first essay collection, Against Interpretation. Over the past year, 2 years or so, I've really fallen in love with creative nonfiction, essay, memoir type writings, and I feel like Susan Sontag's name is one I've heard come up fairly often when sort of exploring this genre, and so I'm definitely keen to check out her work as sort of a landmark writer in this sort of genre. And this is her first essay collection that originally came out in 1966. Along with Susan Sontag, 2024 is going to be the year that I finally check out Joan Didion, keeping on the sort of creative nonfiction essay train here. I've never read any Joan Didion before, and I feel like it's high time that I do so. So I'm planning on starting with Didion's first essay collection as well, Slouching Towards Bethlehem that came out in 1968. And according to the description of this book, quote, is considered a watershed moment in American writing. The collection was critically praised as one of the, quote, best prose written in the country when it was first published. I've heard that Joan Didion has a very distinct, engrossing writing style, and I'm just very interested to check her out and see what she's about. I feel like 2024 is the year that I'm starting to check off some larger names that have been on my to-read list, and the next book is no exception, and that is The Last Supper, A Summer in Italy by Rachel Cusk. This will be my first Rachel Cusk. I feel like Cusk is a name that often comes up on a lot of booktube channels. I've been really interested to check her out. This book in particular, The Last Supper, came out in 2022 with Picador USA, and I ended up choosing this as my first Cusk, one because I've been gravitating towards sort of reflective memoir type pieces, and this is a documentation of her time that she and her young family spent in Italy for a summer. And two, I myself went on a trip to Italy in 2023, and so I kind of want to relive parts of that possibly through this piece of writing that Cusk has published. This next book is one that I previously mentioned in my mid-year freakout tag as one that I would really like to read in the future, and that is Monsters, A Fan's Dilemma by Claire Dederer. This came out in April of 2023 with Knopf Publishing Group, and is described as, quote, an examination on how we experience art in the age of cancel culture and of the link between genius and monstrosity. Can we love the work of controversial classic and contemporary artists but dislike the artist? So definitely looking forward to getting my hands on a copy of this book and finally figuring out what I think about it. This next book is one that was definitely making its rounds earlier in 2023 on BookTube, but it's one that's continued to pop up in the back of my mind as really wanting to get my hands on a copy of, and that is The Wall by Marlen Haushofer. I think is how you say her last name, apologies. This is translated from the German by Sean Whiteside. This book originally came out in 1963, but has, I believe, been republished recently and sort of gotten a new audience. It sounds like in this book we are following a middle-aged female protagonist vacationing by herself in the Austrian mountains when one day she wakes up and finds that there's an invisible wall separating her and the outside world. It's been described as allegorical yet deeply personal and absorbing. The Wall is at once a critique of modern civilization, a nuanced and loving portrait of a relationship between a woman and her animals, a thrilling survival story, a Cold War era dystopian adventure, and a truly singular feminist classic. Definitely looking forward to checking out The Wall. I'd mentioned in my reading goals for 2023 video that I put out at the beginning of the year that I really wanted to read more James Baldwin, and what I came to realize throughout the year is that I really want my own copies of James Baldwin to read because I know that I want to annotate the heck out of them, and I knew that as far as my James Baldwin experience, I wanted to start with Giovanni's Room, so that's why this book is on this list. It is a pivotal queer literature classic that was originally published in 1956. We're following a young American expat who is struggling to come to terms with his sexuality. Whenever I've come across a quote by James Baldwin or listened to parts of an interview with him, I've always been enthralled by his use and command of language, and I'm really interested to see what he does on the page with it. Likewise, I didn't want to pick up just one James Baldwin. I wanted to pick up some of his creative nonfiction, his essays, and so I figured I would again start with one of the big ones, The Fire Next Time, that originally came out in 1963. I feel like this collection stands as not only just a piece of classic nonfiction at this point, but also a historically significant text for what was, at the time, the emerging civil rights movement in the United States. So very interested and really excited to finally get to delve into Baldwin in the coming year. And the last book to round out this 2-by list is De Profundis and Other Prison Writings by Oscar Wilde. I've really had a hankering for more Oscar Wilde recently, and this collection includes some of his most tragically famous bits of work, prose, poetry, and letters that he wrote when he was imprisoned after being tried and found guilty of homosexuality in 1895. De Profundis, the title piece, was a public letter that he wrote to his lover, Lord Alfred Douglas, that was published in 1905. I'm interested in this collection in part as a snapshot of Wilde's life, but also I've heard that De Profundis is one of his best prose pieces that he ever wrote. So really looking forward to checking that out. If you're interested in following along to hear my thoughts on these books in 2024, feel free to subscribe and stick around. I'd love to have you. I'm planning on putting out a video talking about the favorite books that I read in 2023 next week, so stay tuned for that. But I hope you all are doing well, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.